Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit in current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest and repeat offender on Ron Siegel Radio. Holly McDonald is with us. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you with us. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, is it called celebrating today, or is it a day of remembrance? Today's National Titanic Remembrance Day. So I don't know that we would celebrate that one. I would also say today, April 15th, in most areas, not all, because there are exemptions out there. Today's also tax day. Now, I know there's nobody listening to me right now that's really excited about tax day. But oh wait, we better hold the phone there. 7-Eleven, you get $10.40 off with the code WRITEOFF. BJ's Restaurant, $10 off with a code of 10OFF40. California Pizza Kitchen, $10 off for members of their rewards group. Krispy Kreme, second dozen donuts free. Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, free upgrade to a large drink. And Round Table Pizza, $7 off with a code of RTP220. There's a bunch of others, but I'm just going to stop right there. And for those of us that have beaten anorexia, today is National Glazed Spiral Ham Day. That looks pretty good. Although, I shouldn't say too much about glazed spiral ham, just because, it's Passover and, something I've never kept kosher anyway. So and I like spiral ham, but doesn't go too well with my diet. 48 pounds if you're following the process here. 48 pounds off so far, so I can't complain about that one. If you're, we're going to do a whole radio program about these shots that people are taking, and I am one of them. And I think we've got that scheduled for the 24th, I think it is. We're going to talk about that. You can go get more information on them, rsrlinks.com/shot, rsrlinks.com/shot. A whole different story there, but let's take a look at the markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, right now it's up 138 points. The S&P 500 is up 27. The NASDAQ up 87 points. Oil's down 55 cents a barrel, and everywhere but California, oil prices seem to be dropping. We like the taxes and fees here, so our prices just kind of, we don't tend to benefit here. Although a year ago, I am looking, it was $5.46 a gallon. And today, average in California, $4.88 a gallon. And as many of you know, if you watch our program a lot, or if you follow me on any of the socials, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can generally find me, if you're up early enough, I'm down at Balboa area. And actually, as I come back right across from Holly's office, they're over $5 a gallon for gasoline in California. Yeah, we get to enjoy that high prices, and yes, we do lead the nation in gasoline prices. So 488 is the average for us here in California. But we are on tax day. We are on chaos day. I was watching the markets earlier this morning. Of course, I watch them every morning quite early. We watch the pre-market, and then we get into the rest of the market. But what's going on in the markets is they seem to be believing finally that, or maybe that some of the tariff issues are smoothing out. And I think that even though I've shared that, I support what's a lot of the things the president's doing, but I think when he looks at his legacy, the legacy is going to be very, very simple and can be described in one word: chaos. Right? I mean, that no matter what, whether you like his policies or not, chaos seems to be the thing. We've got a lot of companies that are getting ready to report earnings. It doesn't seem like any of them so far are reporting anything where they're showing any negative numbers as far as write-downs for tariff issues. Although China did come back today and said that they're not going to accept delivery of Boeing planes. And does anybody care? Now, the issue that they, and this only comes from a communist country. They said they're not going to accept Boeing planes that they've already got on order. They've put a deposit in. Maybe Boeing will just divert the orders and sell them to somebody else. But they're also not going to take parts. Now, isn't that a little odd? I could say, okay, you don't want to take the new planes, but not taking the parts, that could be problematic. I think that you need spare parts unless you're planning on just parking the planes. And for those people that are coming up with this misguided idea that China is going to be selling their bonds and it's going to hurt our bond market, do you understand the bond market? So China owns about $700 billion in U.S. bonds. They are not the largest holder of U.S. bonds, contrary to what people think. The United States Federal Reserve holds $4.7 trillion in bonds. Now, I'm not quick on math, but I think that the Fed owns about 6 times what China holds. China's bonds are at very, very low coupon rates. So they're at 1%, 2%, 3% coupon rate on those bonds. Now, if they sell those bonds, what is the ramifications of that? Yes, it does add bonds to our market. And, there's a lot of cash on the sidelines on our market. So what would they do? That people can go buy those bonds and look at possibly making money on the bond portion, on the bond. The other thing that could happen is that the United States Federal Reserve could buy those bonds. Now, the Fed is issuing bonds right now at today's prices. Today's prices are extremely high, if you haven't noticed. So they're looking at a 10-year Treasury right now at about 4.4 is where the Treasury is right now as I speak to you. So if the Fed goes and buys them at buys those bonds that have 1, 2, 3 coupon rate, but currently they're issuing at 4.4, they just let the current 4.4s roll off and they keep the lower ones, which benefits the U.S. economy. Now, on the flip side, what does it do for China? It makes their currency, the yuan, it makes it a stronger currency. And I don't want to get into the weeds with this stuff, but it hurts their economy. So why would they want to do it to hurt their economy and help ours? Doesn't make any sense. And we look in the markets and we see that their currency is not improving. In fact, it's deteriorating. Their economy is deteriorating. They have a 4% GDP. That's what they tell everybody. They lie every time. So generally, when they came out and said that their GDP was at 10, we used to say figure half. Or, I don't know, maybe it might be positive, probably not even there. But the bottom line is their economy is not good, and 3% of their GDP is attributed to the U.S., and we're not buying anything from them. So that's just where the markets are. Expect our prices to get a little bit better. Our bond prices to go up, which means yields go down, interest rates go down. All good news. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, are you saving up to buy a home? Your tax refund can help. Why a living trust could be the missing piece in your estate strategy, and new home builds coming on the market. Could it help? We'll talk about all that and more. Reach me anytime off air. Number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. 1990, the Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, we just did commit to another Home Select loan. Get homeselect.com, the best loan on the market for those that qualify. Effective interest rate on the last one we did, 0.76 interest. It's a 30-year loan, 0.76 effective rate. Saving time, saving money. Every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. Just the number you need to put into your mortgage calculator to find out exactly what your principal and interest payment will be. And I will tell you that if you don't have a mortgage calculator, shame on you, because we give it away every single day on Ron Siegel Radio. All you have to do is go to rsrlinks.com/mobile app, rsrlinks.com/mobile app. Yesterday's rates: conventional 30-year fix 6.796 down, jumbo 30-year fix 7.339, that was up. FHA 30-year fix 6.429, that was down. VA 30-year fix 6.405, that was down. USDA 30-year fix 6.532, that was down. If you want our market thoughts each and every business day morning, as early as the data allows, rsrlink/market minute, rsrlinks.com/market minute, no spaces in there. What's driving the market today? Well, it's a lot of technicals, and I don't want to get into all the technicals with you. I'll just suffice it to say there's negative technicals on the stock market, positive technicals on the bond market. If the technicals hold, and when there's not a lot of news, you always look to the technicals because they help drive the market. So that's the technical portion of it. Bank of America Global Fund Manager Survey showed that almost half of the respondents believe there will be a global recession. The majority think the U.S. will have a mild recession. As a result, a record share of global portfolio managers intend to cut their holdings in U.S. stocks. Oftentimes, when that occurs, that money finds its way into the bond market, which could help yields move lower. Tomorrow is an important news day, starting with retail sales, which give us a read on the health of the consumer and their spending. Industrial production will also be released, which is one of the main pillars that the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, uses in determining if we are in a recession. So it will be closely watched. We've also got bond auction tomorrow for the 20-year bond. That's going to be interesting to see what the foreign demand looks like. And lastly, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will be speaking tomorrow around 1:30 Eastern time. It'll be very interesting to hear his thoughts on the volatility seen last week and all the narratives that there are out there on tariffs, the dollar, the treasury market, and recessions. Powell is very, very focused on not having recessions on his watch. What does that mean? Well, it could mean that there might be some activity. I don't think at the next meeting, but the meeting after that, in interest rates. And I will share with you something that doesn't get discussed very often. Historically, can't predict the future. I can't guarantee the future, but I can tell you historically, real estate values go up in a recession. And historically, interest rates go down in a recession. What are you waiting for? You can always get the lower interest rate whenever you want it. You can't get a lower real estate value at your discretion. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. Let's bring in our expert on the real estate world. Holly McDonald is with us. Compass is the company. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So what are you telling people? Are you telling them that I can almost guess, but are you telling them wait or act now when it comes to buying property?
Oh, I'm telling them if they can do it now, they should, because the rates are something like you just said that can be traded in later. But, you know, it's always about competition and what's available and what you're facing.
So when we were talking before we went on air, you were mentioning that your area, which I guess we should talk, is you're the coastal Orange County. Is that a good description?
Yeah, that's right.
That there's more building going on.
There's a lot of construction going on, specifically in Costa Mesa. And a lot of that construction is not necessarily homes for resale. A lot of it is apartments and retail and all of that. We're seeing that in Huntington Beach as well as Newport. And that is attracting more people to our area.
That's kind of interesting. So if it's commercial, what is that? How does that affect the residential market or living conditions or whatnot?
Well, just by virtue of having more housing available and commercial available, it's attracting more people here. So when we're in a market that does have a housing shortage and we're adding in more like short-term housing where it's apartment style and all of that, then there is like a draw for people that want to live here, but they can't necessarily buy here. And then they're in that cycle of renting.
So we want to try and avoid the renting cycle, but sometimes the coastal area, it's expensive, but a lot of us commute to that area just because. So having all that new commercial is going to be great. Maybe a little more congestion, but the new commercial is wonderful.
Yeah, I think the commercial is certainly going to be a draw. And for a lot of people that are just looking to the area, and like you said, they can't necessarily afford to buy here, there's going to be enticement for them to live here because they'll have those options as far as apartment housing goes.
So construction is mostly an apartment and multifamily? Is that it?
For the most part, there's not a lot of land left to build on. So there are some infill developments where they're taking the older houses that have larger parcels, and then they're dividing those up into smaller lots and selling those off. We still do see some of that, but it's not as prevalent. There's not as many options for that.
Yeah, that the whole idea of that is, I think that a lot of the communities get upset. I know in a lot of communities in Orange County where they've got larger parcels, the communities like the idea of having larger parcels and not breaking it up into bringing in more congestion or smaller units. So do you get any fight back from communities and trying to get permits for that?
So I would say in general, Costa Mesa is pretty pro that because they don't mind having the extra units. If you go through a neighborhood like Eastside Costa Mesa, which used to be all farmland and older cottages, a lot of those larger lots that were 15,000, 20,000 square feet, those are being divided up into little like 3,000 square foot parcels where they're putting multiple houses on them. Yeah, that does cause concern for people as far as parking and traffic goes. And that even kind of ties into all of the ADUs and accessory dwelling units being brought into the area.
Well, 3,000 square foot, that almost puts you into, well, the Irvine area where you're basically sharing your kitchen with your neighbor's living room or something.
I mean, that's becoming the trend just because the area is somewhere that's so desirable for people, but there's not a lot of land. People want to be close to the coast, or they want to be close to work or the airport. And the only way to get that is to just have the lot size be smaller. And then they build them vertically.
So one of the questions I would ask, Holly, and it's something that you and I didn't even talk about, but it's just something that I've always pondered is, I've mentioned many times, I go and walk on Balboa Island, and I've got to know a bunch of people there, and I feel like, I'm 62 and I'm the kid, everyone's 20 years older than me. And you start looking at it and you say, how do people afford the property taxes in those areas? Are there strategies that you use to try and help, or is it just bite the bullet?
With property taxes, it is a lot of bite the bullet. I mean, unfortunately, if you're a first-time home buyer, the taxes are just going to be based upon the sales price.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I never knew if because I've looked in the certain areas where I always wondered, if I put if the property's in an LLC and you buy the LLC and not the property, is it a tax, something that's available? But I just never knew. And I'm sure I'm not the first person that's ever asked you that, how do you, is there any way? But it's just, suck it up. If you want to live here, that's the ante for the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are just basically factoring that into what is my overall monthly payment going to be if I want to live in this location. So, insurance is another thing right now that people are really factoring in, because before we used to be like, oh, 50, $100 a month, whatever. But of course, insurance has taken a turn, and that really is impacting people's affordability.
So do you see a lot of people that take that step? It would seem to me that, okay, I can't afford to live in Newport, but Costa Mesa is a great alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah, we hear that quite a bit. I mean, it ends up being kind of an overflow city for people that want to stay close to Newport. But it's like one of the more affordable options that's still coastal.
And you have the great access to getting everywhere as well from there.
Right. And the school district is Newport Mesa. So they are, they're interrelated, they're intertwined.
Are the school districts rated well there?
Yeah, many of them are. It's a good, highly rated system.
Because that's always something that everybody looks at is, especially if you're a first-time buyer, if you're old like me, the school district doesn't mean a whole lot just because of, maybe for resale value.
Yeah.
But, I let my kids worry about that part. I don't have to worry. I probably wouldn't worry about it. But for, if you're a young family, you want to know, as part of your cost of your monthly budget is, can I go send my kids to public school, or do I have to find a private school to send them to?
Oh yeah, that's a huge factor for people.
Interesting stuff. We're going to continue our conversation with Holly McDonald when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, are you saving up to buy a house? Maybe you can use your tax refund. That's an interesting one. And why a living trust could be the missing piece in your estate strategy. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Are you saving up to buy a home? Your tax refund can help. You've been working on your savings and dreaming of that moment when you finally have keys to a place that's truly yours. What you might not realize is that your tax return could give you a little extra cash to help you get there sooner. As Freddie Mac notes, quote, your tax refund from the IRS can be a useful supplement to your home buying budget, unquote. So if you're getting a tax refund this year, you can use it to help you pay for some of the upfront costs that come with buying a home, like the down payment and closing costs. And here's the best part. On average, people are getting even more money back in their refunds than they did last year. While it's not a big increase, the visuals that we have for you, if you're watching us on ronsiegelradio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk AM 1490 and FM 98.1 video feed, shows that while it's not a big increase, the visual is using data from the Internal Revenue Service to show the average individual's refund is 3.9% higher this year, $3,170. Of course, how much money you may get in your tax refund is going to vary, but when it comes to buying a home, any extra cash can help move things forward. Here are a few examples of how you can put that money to good use, according to Freddie Mac. Save for a down payment. Saving for a down payment can be one of the biggest hurdles for buyers. Setting aside your tax refund for this expense could help you get to your goal faster. Just remember, it is not typically required to put 20% down. It is not required to put 20% down. Paying for closing costs. Closing costs include fees for things like the appraisal, title insurance, and underwriting your loan. They're generally between 2 and 5% of the total purchase price of your home. So putting your refund toward these costs can make things more manageable on closing day. Lower your mortgage rate. Your lender might give you the option to buy down your mortgage rate. If you qualify for this option, you could pay up front to have a lower rate on your mortgage. If affordability is tight for you at today's rates and home prices, this may be worth exploring. I'm also going to say it may be worth exploring getting a higher interest rate and a bigger rebate from your lender. Strategy beats rate always. Strategy beats rate always. Because as we discussed with Holly McDonald a minute ago, you can always trade in that interest rate later for a lower one if you want. But if you don't have to figure it all out on your own, working with a team of trusted real estate professionals who understand the home buying process, what you need to save, and any resources you can tap into will help you make sure you're ready to buy when the time comes. Bottom line, when it comes time for saving a home, it comes easy for me to say. When it comes to saving for a home, every dollar gets you one step closer to your goal. While your tax refund may not be enough to change the game, it can help you in the home buying and boosting that fund. What would having your own home mean for you and your family this year? Give me a call at 800-306-1990. Let's discuss the strategy. That's the real-time real estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Continuing our conversation, Holly McDonald at Compass is our guest today, chatting about real estate. And Holly's been doing this for a day or two. I think I saw in the notes 15 years, Holly?
Yep, it's been 15 years. And then today is actually my 3-year anniversary at Compass.
Oh, congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So do they have a big party for you at Compass?
I get a little bit of cheers there.
Nice. So tell me a little bit, Holly. Do you work mostly with buyers or sellers?
It's pretty evenly split. I'm usually just about 50-50.
Okay, so let's go to the buyers first. And we obviously want to, make sure people have our home buyer's guide, and they can get that rsrlinks.com/HBG2025. But what's your process like when you're going to start working with a new buyer?
So typically when working with a buyer, I either do a consultation in person or via like a Zoom, and we'll go over what the process is going to look like. And especially now that we have the agreements that we have to use to lay out how the commissions are kind of divvied up, we go over that. But aside from that, we go over what are their needs, what are their goals, what are they looking for, what can they qualify for, all of the important things, as well as kind of lay out the process so they know what to expect.
Okay, so there's been a lot in the news lately about the contract, and it's not something that's new that for real estate agents to have a buyer agreement.
Yeah.
The new part is that now it's the law. Before it was just a business practice. Is that right?
Yeah. And I would say many agents I know did not work with the buyer agreement just to go show houses and work with somebody exclusively. A lot of times we're meeting our clients at open houses and public places, and there's not necessarily a level of commitment. There's loyalty, but not necessarily something in writing that stipulates what sort of fee they're going to have for the services that you're providing.
So in the past, it was built into the purchase price. Is it still built into the purchase price, or is it, a lot of people thought it was fixed, and it's always been negotiable, right?
It's always been negotiable. In the past, a lot of the times it would be offered on the MLS how much the buyer's broker was going to receive. Now, more so, it's not on the MLS, not at all here in California. However, some sellers and their listing agents may put an amount that the seller is willing to offer. I would say the most common thing we're seeing is that they're not putting it out there, like what they would pay, but it is being all negotiated throughout the offer process. So if I'm representing a buyer, we'll usually be asking the seller in our offer to compensate for whatever the agreed upon amount is that I have worked out with my buyer.
Now, on the flip side, do you use that compensation amount as a sales tool or a marketing advantage for you? Do you ever do that?
Yeah, that's definitely something too.
Okay, because we've put out many times. We offer a video, and we've done shows on using that buyer's agent commission to motivate the buyer to bring somebody to see my house that I want to sell.
Oh yeah,
Just seems to me that that's logical, right?
Well, of course, because that does motivate both the buyer, who now doesn't have to fear that they may not be able to pay their agent. And of course, that makes it a lot easier for them to buy that property.
Makes a lot of sense. And, it's just it's interesting how sometimes things they get surprise, they get convoluted when it gets into the media. Surprise. Right? I mean, it's all these things that are there. It's just a different process, but nothing's really changed in pricing and whatnot. Do I have a basic correct or?
Yeah, I would say you're right. I mean, I think from what I'm seeing, a lot of sellers, people hear what they want to hear. So a lot of sellers hear, oh, it's negotiable, then why would I pay? The buyers are now expected to pay for that. But the reality is that specifically in first-time home buyer or even move-up buyers, that extra amount for the commission is a lot harder for them to come up with out of pocket than it is for the seller to, help them out with that as part of the closing process, because that's how it has been customarily done, is that typically it would come out of the seller proceeds, whatever they've kind of baked into the price. So, there's still a lot of finessing around it.
Okay, so let's flip now to the listing side. What's the process look like when you're talking to somebody about listing with you? Why would I want to go to you instead of, there's hundreds, what is there?
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of agents around.
Yeah. Well, as far as listing the property, I mean, the level of expertise behind the marketing and the neighborhood and the features of the home and the negotiating process, those are all really integral parts.
So tell me a little bit about your process. As far as your marketing is, obviously Compass has got a great presence in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot technology based, a lot of social media now as well. Every property kind of gets a little bit of a different process depending on what highlights we need to do. But there is definitely a meeting going over the property compared to other properties in the area, looking at how the current market is behaving, buyer behavior, and then as far as marketing, kind of dialing in a plan for that home.
So it's not a cookie cutter. It's basically review what's there, and then what the desires are of the seller, and go from that process.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a baseline of what the basic marketing plan is going to look like, but it's definitely customized and tailored to the specific property and seller.
It sounds like it's there's so much more to it, and I love when you talk about all these different steps, because one of the things that kind of gets in my craw is when you watch TV and some of the commercials make it look like it's no big deal. Everybody's going to do the same thing. You can just put it on the MLS yourself and get the same results. And I look at it and say, something? It's a huge financial commitment, buying or selling. And why would you want to take that risk on yourself?
Well, those commercials drive me crazy. And also, a lot of the time, they're pitching it as a very, very low service fee, and you get what you pay for most of the time.
I like that. You get what you pay for. And I look at it. There's nothing wrong with Walmart if I'm looking to buy a cheap toy, right, or a throwaway shirt. But there is the time that I need to go go to Nordstrom or something like that, which I don't go shopping anyway, but I guess those are nice stores, right? A whole different vibe is what you're looking for.
I totally agree. I think that a lot of the time when you're looking at your biggest asset, you really need to be careful about what sort of service you're going to be getting.
And you don't want, and like, as you said, it's not cookie cutter. That, you go on, it's kind of like I look at it as lending. You can't go online and just, you can get it done online, but you're probably not going to maximize your value and your benefits with that online service. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, more with Holly McDonald at Compass. We're talking about your real estate, buying, selling, coastal properties. If you want to be there, everybody wants to be in the coast. So you better find someone who knows what they're doing. You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Do you know a homeowner experiencing divorce? Do you know a real estate reference and the divorce decree could cost tens of thousands of dollars? A certified divorce mortgage planning and real estate report could save you thousands of dollars, and it's free from your local certified divorce lending professional. Reach out to Ron today. RonIsMyLender.com. Again, RonIsMyLender.com. Licensed under NMLS 217037, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. The Borrow Smart segment today being brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com. GetHomeSelect.com. If you're really looking to build wealth, I talk about all the time the Home Select loan, just because I've yet to see an instance where we didn't pay off a 30-year loan in 8 years. Now, you still keep the liquidity for the whole 30 years, but boy, wouldn't you like to not have that mortgage payment and have the liquidity if you want to go and buy a piece of rental property, buy a new car, all having it paid quickly, effective interest rate more important than a real actual number? Because we talk about all the time that who cares what your interest rate is? You could have a 3% interest rate. If you're paying that for 30 years, your interest expense is a lot more than having an 8% interest rate that you're only paying for 5 years. You want to understand this, gethomeselect.com, gethomeselect.com. And if we want to get the strategy, go and take a look at our mini app. It's something we're just rolling out right now. rsrlinks.com/Sora. rsrlinks.com/Sora. Right now, we're actually seeing more people are having trouble nationwide making a minimum payment on their credit cards than almost any time in history. You want to see if we can build a strategy to help solve that problem for you? It takes about 30 seconds. Fill out the 7 questions we ask on the link, rsrlinks.com/Sora, S-O-R-A, rsrlinks.com/Sora. That's the Borrow Smart segment brought to you by gethomeselect.com, gethomeselect.com. Continue our conversation. Holly McDonald from Compass is with us. We're talking about buying and selling real estate, understanding strategies that'll help you maybe get that first home, next home, talking about creativity. And, there's a lot of ways of skinning a cat, but you got to have somebody that's got the experience to know how to do it. Holly McDonald is with us. Welcome back. So we're talking about listing properties when we stepped away. And obviously we've got the home seller's guide that is updated every single quarter, rsrlinks.com/HSG. When you talk about competition, what does that mean in the world of selling a property?
Competition is something we have to look at so carefully. There's a couple of different ways to look at it. So when you're selling a home, you have to look at what the competition looks like that buyers are going to be considering. Because if you're competing against other homes that buyers are more likely to be attracted to, that's going to put you at a disadvantage. So that's one thing. And then competition is also looked upon as all the buyers that are looking at your house. Every seller wants to be the house that gets multiple offers, bidding wars, buyer competition. And the fact of the matter is some homes get it and some homes don't. And there are so many factors that go into it. And a lot of times, sometimes we know it right off the bat, but other times it's a gamble.
Give me an idea of what the difference is. Why would one house on Main Street versus another house on Main Street get into a bidding war versus the other one just sitting there?
A lot of times it comes down to the pricing. It comes down to the level of upgrades in a property. If they're the more appealing upgrades, that's more likely going to get the competition. If it's a house that's more dated, if the price isn't right to reflect that, not going to get as much interest. And even simple things like the location on the street can have an impact.
That's an interesting one because I've done quite a bit of work out in the Coachella Valley, and until I sat with a real estate agent who was a professional understanding that market, I had no idea that one side of the golf course is more desirable than the other side of the fairway. Now, just my ignorance, right? And you don't see that when you go and you're just looking online or something like that. Do you do when you're talking about somebody with regards to listing a property? Are you reviewing the property for staging upgrades that need to be done? How long? What's the process of getting something ready to go to market?
That all depends. Again, like that's the customization part of it, because sometimes the seller wants to put in money or upgrades because that they know that will get them top dollar. I've certainly had sellers that have been totally keen on doing that. And Compass has a great program called Compass Concierge that sellers have been so excited to use, knowing that it would make their home sell faster, more valuable, they get a higher return. But some sellers, they just want to wash their hands and walk away. They don't want to make the upgrades. So we have to, first I have to find out like what is their tolerance, what is their time frame, what is their financial situation, what are their goals, and give them the different options so that they can make the best decision for themselves.
In the earlier segment, I was mentioning the fact that I go down and do some walking in Balboa, and I know it's an older area, but I know that there's some areas that you just mentioned as being dated. you ever come across, is there any such thing, if you're dealing with a probate or a trust sale, is there any such thing as a good deal, or does the market bring everything right back to the drive pricing, I guess is the best way to put it?
So everybody wants a good deal. Every buyer wants a good deal. Probably the best deals are going to be found off market because those don't necessarily have all of the competition that the market's going to bear. And those happen quite frequently. Roughly 20 to 30% of our homes in our market do trade off market. That's typically a seller that is looking to wash their hands and they feel like this is the fastest, easiest way to take something off my plate. There are certainly properties that trade off market that are just gorgeous and beautiful and would certainly have multiple offers, but for one reason or another, the seller doesn't want to go to market. So the best deals, though, are typically the ones found offline.
So in that situation, then I'm assuming that you really, if you're wanting to get the, kind of get the best of both worlds, maximize your price and do something offline, and not have to have your house set up as a museum all the time. You're really better off going with a big box broker, aren't you?
Well, you need to go with whoever's going to most likely have the buyer for you. That's going to be the most important thing. So sure, a lot of the big box brokers are going to have a massive pool of buyers, but it might depend on the certain locality that you're in. There might be one agent that just magnetically attracts all of the clients and buyers and has that database. And then that person would probably be the most likely to have your buyer.
Okay, so it's not a matter of, like I would have assumed that, you're at Compass. Compass in my mind is a big company.
Yeah.
And I don't know the stats of Compass versus XYZ or anybody else, but I would think that, there must be, in my old feeble mind, you put something up on the bulletin board in the office, and I don't even know if they have bulletin boards anymore in office. I don't even know if anybody goes to an office anymore. And you're going to get that more people because of having that big footprint.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because actually Compass does have a really wide net called this. We have a private exclusive action plan essentially where on our back end, all of the agents within the Compass ecosystem can share their off-market listings with one another. And so, yes, that gives you access to, tens of thousands of agents nationwide. Again, it's going to come down to whoever has your buyer, but yeah, that can certainly be a huge benefit for sellers who do want to have the best of both worlds.
It opens up the market, I would think, just because I know that I know a lot of folks that are looking in the coastal area are going to be a similar person that might have a home out in the Coachella Valley, because they don't want to be out there in the summer. They want to be in the coast. It's a lot more comfortable. And if you can talk to, the agent that, if you're putting that on that company bulletin board, whatever it's called, those buyers, those sellers out, those agents out there, I got Mrs. Jones out here. I'm going to have her call Holly and can help with that process. Am I somewhat online there?
Totally, 100%.
Perfect. If you want more information about coastal Orange County, Holly McDonald is your person. Give me a call at 800-306-1990. I'd be happy to put you in touch. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to Josh and Sean who are engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.